Hey, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be reviewing over the Texans running back positional group. And as y'all know, there's probably three prominent players that are going to get most of the snaps, if not all of them. We have David Johnson, Mark Ingram, and Philip Lindsay. Those guys are going to be our three-headed monster in the backfield. And I think it'll be pretty exciting to watch. I think like a model you can kind of like expect to the Texans to kind of imitate is the Baltimore rushing scheme, where they had three guys in the backfield: J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Mark Ingram. Obviously, they had Lamar Jackson, who was a very obviously one of the best dual threat quarterbacks, who had 1,000 rushing yards. So obviously, Tyrone Taylor is not Lamar Jackson, of course. So maybe we'll get to see one of those guys. I'm guessing Philip Lindsay to reach the 1,000-yard mark. But what do y'all think about our running back position?
So first of all, the first guy that we're returning with is going to be David Johnson, who played for us last season, came from the DeAndre Hopkins trade, and in the 2020 season, he had 147 rushing attempts for 691 yards and 6 touchdowns, with an average of 4.7 yards per carry. And obviously, the beginning of the season was really, really rough for the run game. David Johnson kind of heated up towards the end of the last 3 games, and he had a couple injuries here and there. So overall, not the worst season for David Johnson. Obviously, we expected more from him coming from the DeAndre Hopkins trade. Thought he would be that big piece for Deshaun Watson to kind of have and take us to the playoffs, but obviously that didn't happen. We had kind of a rough season. But David Johnson would actually be pretty decent in a power run type scheme. He's pretty tough. He breaks tackles. He's very elusive. He's definitely an every single down back, but he won't necessarily have to do that anymore. He's already 29 years old. He's had a lot of injuries in his career. So for him to be able to kind of take the weight off of him, it's going to be pretty good, mixing in Lindsay and Ingram. But I think for now, David Johnson will still remain the starter.
The next running back we're going to be talking about is Mark Ingram. He played the last 2 seasons with the Baltimore Ravens. In 2019, it was one of his best seasons of his career, in my opinion. Maybe not necessarily stats-wise, but I guess in terms of like his play style and all of that, like he was able to mix it up a lot. In 2019, he had 202 total attempts, 1,018 yards, 5 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns, 26 receptions. And in this most recent season, the 2020 season, he has 72 attempts, 299 yards, 4.2 average yards per carry, with 2 touchdowns and 6 receptions. So, I mean, it was a drastic drop-off. I know he got hurt. I believe it was like in week 1 or week 2 or something like that. I think it was in week 2 because that's when we played him, and he pretty much kind of destroyed us. He broke off on that long, I think like 40-yard touchdown. But, he really fits into the scheme. He can run both zone scheme and power-heavy scheme. So he reminds me a little bit of a guy who could fit into like the 49ers system as well as obviously the Baltimore Ravens. We all saw the 49ers, how they have like their 3 running backs. And our 3 running backs are going to be like Philip Lindsay, David Johnson, and then obviously Mark Ingram. And then similar to the Baltimore Ravens as well, they had their 3 guys. But we're going to be a mix of both, in my opinion, where it's like a mix of power running like the Ravens, and then a mix of zone running where it depends on the blocking as well for the 49ers system. But it's not a bad option to have. I would expect him to be more of like a power, mainly only in there in the power game, like zone, like in the red zone or 3rd and short or something like that. But I don't expect him to have too much of a impact, I guess.
All right, and another thing about Mark Ingram is he can definitely bring the leadership aspect to that game. Like you talked about the Ravens, his play style, his leadership is really what made that team really, really special that season when they went 14-2. They had the whole big trust thing, hyping up Lamar Jackson. He's a really great guy, really great teammate. But moving on to the guy who I think is the best running back that we have right now, in Philip Lindsay. Philip Lindsay, in 2020, he had 118 attempts and 502 yards with 1 touchdown and an average of 4.3 yards per carry. But that was after the acquisition of Melvin Gordon, which is a little questionable. And then Philip Lindsay also had a couple injuries throughout the season. But in 2019, as an undrafted rookie, he had 224 carries, 1,011 yards with a 4.3 yard per carry average and 7 touchdowns. for him to do that in a rookie season, undrafted, is just absolutely incredible. He was considered one of the most talented running backs at that time. It was a really big shock to many people that he came off onto the scene. And the fact that we were able to land him for a 1-year deal, only about $3 million, is crazy. Philip Lindsay is very elusive. He's only 5'8", 190 though, which is a little unexpected from him being with his size at 5'8". He can kind of fit into the zone and power scheme, unlike Ingram and Johnson, who are really more of a power run kind of running back. But Philip Lindsay has a little bit of everything into his game. He has a really nice burst of speed, very solid vision, be able to follow the leading blockers, he can follow the guards that pull in the power run scheme. And he can kind of just see the entire field in his own running scheme. So with that being said, he would be the guy that I would play at the moment. He's only 26 years old. He could really be the running back of the future for the Texans, a guy that we haven't had since Lamar Miller's first season or Arian Foster's prime in Houston. We really needed a good running back, which we haven't had for a while. I think Philip Lindsay would be really exciting. And if he's given the opportunity, if he's given about 150 to 200 carries, that's all I'm asking for from the Texans to give him. He'll give you about 700, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns, something like that. Let him get onto the field, let him be productive, and he'll be the best running back. And that rushing attack will be a lot more dangerous.
Yeah, our rushing attack last season was pretty abysmal. We were like the third worst team in the league in rushing. We only had 5 20-plus yard runs and 1 40-plus yard run. We only had 1,466 yards total rushing, and so it wasn't that great. And so that's why I really like our running back group this year, because I feel like each guy has one thing that they're really good at, certainly like Mark Ingram, he's really good at like blocking wise, and then David Johnson, he's pretty good as a receiving threat, and then Phil Lindsay, I would assume he's the main workhorse. And so they all have their certain niche or like things that they're good at. So like I think that's what I really like about this group. And like coaching wise, our running backs coach is Danny Barrett, and he's been on our staff for a while. So who knows if our like running back scheme will change. Hopefully it does with David Culley at the helm. But Danny Barrett, he has 23 years of experience in the NFL, Canadian Football League, and collegiate ranks. And Andy Bischoff, who's also our tight ends coach, is also planning on helping us with that, and he comes from the Baltimore Ravens. And so, as we know, Baltimore had like one of the best rushing attacks last season. So, hopefully, we'll kind of like reciprocate that in a similar fashion. And our O-line is a little bit better too. Like O-line is, some say that the O-line is like 80% of the run game in a sense. So when you have additions like Mark Ingram and Justin Britt, who's probably slightly better than Nick Martin, it's going to be a better season for rushing. And if we have Tyrone Taylor at the helm, we're going to see more of us doing more rushing attempts than usual. So pretty excited about our run game next season. And there's also other guys that we didn't talk about. There's also Buddy Howell, Scotty Phillips, and Dontrell Hilliard, who probably won't see the field barring injury. But what do y'all think about that? Do you have anything else to add?
I would just say look out for like a Ravens kind of run scheme where we have Andy Bischoff from the Ravens. He worked there for quite a bit, came over David Culley, so there's a lot of experience within that scheme. That's exactly why we talk about the Ravens run scheme being a possibility. We don't just make assumptions. We look at what we Texans have done. Look at who the Texans have signed. They signed Justin Britt, who really is a power run type center. He screams power run. And we have Titus Howard out there already, and that's by far his best trait is the power run game. So you might as well already use what you have in that scenario. So I would just say expect a lot of that. Expect a lot more run than you've seen in the past. Tyron Taylor, while he's old, he's still pretty mobile. He can move around. You will see read options being run, triple options even possibly being run from the Tyron Taylor running the ball a lot more. Because while we have Brandon Cooks, we have these new weapons in Brevin Jordan and Collins, we still need to establish the run, which we never were able to do this past season. I think that's a big difference from going 2-15 to like 7-10 this year. if the run game can get going, we will play much, much better.
And yeah, it's gonna be very tough for opposing defenses to really see what we're gonna run. Like all of our running backs, as Fuller was saying earlier, Mark Ingram, he can run either power or zone. Philip Lindsay can do the same, and same as David Johnson. Like you can go out there in a power-heavy scheme, or like as it looks like a power-heavy formation, and then you come out and run a stretch, or you come out and run like a toss or something to the outside. Like you can do many different things with this offense, and I think the rushing attacks will be the main vocal point of this offense. So as Drew was just saying, if we can establish that run, we can really go from a not too great team, maybe like a low, maybe a 3-win team, to maybe even a 7 to 8-win team, or maybe even barely sneak into that wild card. Probably not gonna happen, but I mean, you never know. Maybe this rushing attack can be something special and can really be one of the best in NFL. On paper, it looks like it could be potentially a top 10 at least rushing attack, but we just have to see if all the blocking can be aligned, if all the schemes and just all of that. But it's going to be a very interesting and fun year. We just have to hope for the best, and yeah.
So like our offense was pretty dominant last season. Obviously our defense wasn't that good to get, like, that's why our record was so bad. So what do you guys predict like our offensive like ranking would be like among other teams in the NFL?
Run game, I would say top 20 at this point. And the passing game is probably gonna be like 25, 24. So the total offense will probably average about to be in the 20s, really. But that's okay. I mean, the team is, you can see from all the signings of free agency, is built around the defense. And the defense can play, we're gonna win some games. If that run game can go, we're gonna win some games. But it's gonna take time for all these things to develop. We got these new coaches, we got these new players, so the running game is definitely not going to be working on week 1. Sure, we play the Jaguars, and they have a pretty weak defense, but don't expect everything to just be a blowout. This team's not going to be dominant. They're going to be gritty. They're going to work hard. They're going to try their best. They're just going to learn every single week how to get better. That's what you have to do with a new regime. Everything here is new, and you just have to build off of that every single week.
I feel like a running game is going to be like outside of the top 10, maybe like around 13, 12, maybe like in the 15 range. Not yet, or not quite top 10, but like just outside of it. And our passing game, I feel like it's going to be like, around what Drew said, 23, 24, maybe a little bit higher if the offensive line can really get into the groove in the passing game or in the pass blocking. Tyrone Taylor doesn't have the best arm, but he can for sure be accurate at times. I think almost every year that he's been a starter, I'm not sure if he's been to the playoffs or if he's made the playoffs or something like that, but part of that is because of his arm. He's not only a mobile quarterback who can just run like almost every play, similar to like a Lamar type of quarterback. He's a guy who can sit in that pocket and actually be accurate and be precise. So, I mean, it's not going to be the worst, but I do expect it to be around like at least middle 20, high 20, something like that. But it's going to be a very fun year on offense. It's going to be something we haven't really seen from the Houston Texans, I don't think, ever. It's going to be a mix of pretty much everything. Power run, zone running, deep passes, short passes, play action. It's going to be everything. And usually every year, we prioritize on a specific scheme or a specific passing scheme or whatever. But this year, it's going to be a mix of everything to see what works, to see what type of players we have, to see what kind of, I guess, schemes we excel in, and just different things like that. But it's going to be a very fun year and exciting year.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's going to be, our offense is going to be around the 20s, but that's definitely okay. And let us know your thoughts on our running back group. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Thank y'all for watching. Peace.